I wasn't marketed to anymore. That's what he said. If you want to reach over 50 clients, you have to know what to say and what not to. Jay Croft creates original content for trainers, gyms, and studios. And everywhere you write, speak, or create video, you are a copywriter. I rounded up a professional writer, prior journalist who creates content on the everyday, every week for gyms, studios, and trainers just like you. Stay until the end on this one for some help on how you can use AI to, number one, stay safe, not be legally obligated otherwise. And you can use AI to generate content to reach over 50 clients faster, better, and create a stronger relationship. My guest today is Jay Croft. He's created Prime Fit content to help gym owners and trainers just like you create and reach more people over 50 after 30 years in mass media and corporate communications. He's a veteran writer, editor, and content creator, and Jay creates premium original material best used in email newsletters, social media, and in blogs. He also consults with businesses about this vast underserved segment of the market. Yeah, over 50s. If you serve them, you're probably going to think, what? It seems like everybody's serving them, but that is because your antenna is up, my friend. But the truth is, it's still an underserved market. So if you're not reaching them, there's still a huge opportunity. And I hope that you listen to this episode and take advantage of some of the tips that we offer here. He's helping us learn how to best communicate with them much more effectively. I'm Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to She Means Fitness Business. And that is a division of my overarching business, Voice for Fitness, where we believe that you deserve to make a living doing what you love. And I know exactly how it can feel if you are attracting too few clients. You're sending those email newsletters to crickets in response. Because I started over at 49. I started from scratch and built a business. And there were a lot of very lean months, in fact, years. And it was a bit lonely and quite a bit scary. But I'm sharing how I did it. Went from 0 monthly to 6-figure months. And I know that you can too. Things have changed dramatically since the pandemic. But in this last decade, when no one was talking about menopause fitness, to now when everyone is, but the cream still rises to the crop, this is your moment if you want to serve midlife women. Stick with us and listen to the podcast episodes here that'll help you with your marketing, with your sales that's anything but sleazy, salesy, or pushy, so that you can have integrity and be found by the people who are out there searching exactly for you. Before we dive into this episode, you can reach out here at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/scorecard and grab a 2-minute assessment where you can go through and look at exactly where you might have holes in your business you can begin plugging right now, today. Jay Croft, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. It's nice to see you.
So I shouldn't let this be said, but we do talk about all the juicy stuff in the green room here. So we have to spill the beans. So I want to, before we get into copywriting and writing and the language and getting your voice out there, and so many questions I have for you is,
yes.
Number one, how did you get started doing this? You know, what's your background? Why this? You could be a lawyer, teacher, doctor. Why this?
Oh, okay. Well, I got to this as this is my second career. So I'll tell you, the first one, I was a newspaper journalist for many years. I was a reporter and editor at mainstream daily newspapers like the one that you used to read and I used to read and everyone in the world used to read. And so I was a reporter and writer and editor. I gathered news and information and I packaged it all up for, thousands of strangers to read every day. And then the internet came along and smartphones came along and pretty much killed the newspaper industry. And I had to find a new way to make a living. So I kind of stumbled into corporate communications at enormous corporations and didn't like it and didn't do very well at it. I found it too constricting, and the office politics were way over my head, and it just wasn't a good fit. And around that time that I was deciding I need to leave corporate America, I noticed, well, I turned 50, and I noticed that when I turned 50, I was no longer being marketed to by the fitness industry. And it's difficult to describe what that's like when you notice that you're not being marketed to. But I've spent my whole life in media and in mass communications, and so I could tell. And the only thing I can liken it to is when you're driving in a car with teenagers and they tell you to turn the radio on and they're singing along, as teenagers do, and you have no idea who these singers are or what these songs are, right? It's because you've aged out of the market. The pop music is for kids. It's not for us. And it was that similar kind of feeling of I'm not being seen, and nobody, and this industry isn't paying attention to me anymore. Maybe there's something I can do here. Because the thing I liked most about being a journalist was talking to other people about their stories and sharing those stories with other people. And underneath that was a sense that we were doing something good for others, for our communities, the idea of serving a higher calling. And in corporate America, I didn't have that. I just went to an office and sat in my cubicle and, I don't know. It was all over my head. Like I said, I didn't do a good job, and I wasn't comfortable doing it. And I think part of what was missing was a clarity of purpose, and also a sense that we were doing things that mattered. Because the job in those situations was to advance the agenda of the executives for the company, and maybe if public service happens to fall under there, then that's nice. But it certainly wasn't a main component of that. So I wanted to find a way to write about things that I cared about, that had some emotional content, and that could help people live better lives. And so I thought about what I'm interested in as a reader anyway. And one of those things is fitness. And this occurred around the time I was just talking about, where I felt like I was no longer being marketed to. So I looked into that. Indeed, I was not being marketed to, because the fitness industry, as you know, is obsessed with young people and pursuing the same clients. They all want the same 25-year-old boys and girls who want the same things. And I felt like, gee, there's a missed opportunity here. There's more than 100 million baby boomers, or people over 50, I should say, because it's not baby boomers. It's people over 50 or older, over 55, and that includes Gen X now. There's more than 100 million people in this cohort, and a lot of them are just like me and like you. We've been active our whole lives. We're not going to stop being active. We're not going to stop taking care of our bodies and enjoying our health. And I just thought there was an opportunity there to help gyms and studios reach more people and grow their businesses by serving the over 50 market. So I came up with this plan to create and distribute original marketing material that I create using my background as a journalist and a writer and editor. And I create original content around fitness topics regarding people over 50, and I sell them to gyms and studios, and they use them in their newsletters and in their Facebook and Instagram and in their blogs to distinguish themselves in their communities as a rare gym that wants to help older people. That's
so
what I do.
awesome.
That's what I do. My business is called Prime Fit Content, and it's a subscription service, and everything's written like newspaper articles. It's researched and user friendly. It's not for the trainer. It's not. It doesn't get into the anatomy or technical terms, and I don't give coaching advice because that's what each of my clients is there for. I focus on the things that will move a person to take some action and call that gym or join that gym, or at least express some curiosity in that gym as a way to improve their lives, to play with their grandchildren or to enjoy the travel now that they're closer to retirement or in retirement, to be able to keep playing golf even though they notice they can't hit the ball as far as they used to. So what can a gym help with that? Yes, a gym can help with that. A lot of people might be told they're pre-diabetic. Well, go to the gym. You can turn that around. A lot of really compelling reasons why people our age and older need to exercise regularly. And I don't think the message is out there. And I don't think the core broad understanding about that is established for people who came up when I did. I grew up before there were gyms on every corner. My parents never exercised. My grandparents certainly never did. It's a fairly new phenomenon in our country that ordinary people exercise just for the sake of exercising. So there's an information gap for people who are a little older, 50 and above, who might not have that tradition to fall back on.
So true. That is so good. There is so much there that we could dig into. But I think one of the things is, oh gosh, there is a huge percentage. You may know this. I don't know it anymore. I'm forgetting things I used to know. How good is
yes.
that? That just means we know a lot, please,
That's
right?
That's right. We're
what
so
that
smart.
means. Oh, and it is like a shocking percent of people who are like over 50 feel like marketers get them. I mean, it's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
It's like, the feeling is they don't just understand me. And anybody who's listening, trainer, Pilates instructor, yoga instructor, you own a studio, you're a health coach, you're a marketer. So if you have any clients or hope to and want to have more, you're a marketer. We do need to wear that hat. And I also think, please don't be embarrassed or, feel like that's sleazy, salesy, or pushy. If you're a good coach, we need you to be a marketer. We need you to be comfortable making sales because that's the way we help people. And I think we sometimes have to shrug off the feeling that marketing or sales are sleazy. I loved that you said, in your writing, you're consciously, persuasively writing for the right person to walk down this. If you have this problem and you want to solve it, here's your next step. I would venture to say a lot of trainers, instructors of Pilates or yoga or numerous other fusion types of exercise struggle with the whole idea of how do I write that's maybe different than when I got a C slapped on my English lit class paper. I mean, talk a little bit about the art of writing factual, science-based information in a way that is recognizable and readable as if I were 5, but also has a persuasive slant on it. That's 3 big skills right there. You're bringing them together.
Yes, that is the goal. And it's also what I've been doing forever. It's slightly different in that in newspapers, we weren't trying to persuade anyone to think about anything, to think a certain way. We wanted them to think about a topic. If I wrote about something before the city council, for instance, it was because I wanted this community to know that the city council was thinking about this. But we tried very hard to not tell people what to think about it. With this, with my content now, I'm pretty easy on the hard sell, because my approach is that the information is so compelling and so relevant that it's almost speaks for itself. For instance, you don't need to say, this is the most important, awesome, wonderful thing ever with 3 exclamation points after it, which is what a lot of non-writers do when they say, but I want to tell them this is so important.
Emojis.
Yeah, that's not how you do it, right? The way you do it is you base it in reality and you talk to actual people who are retiring finally after working for 40 years and raising all the kids and paying off the house. And now they finally get to go and enjoy themselves. But they're 40 pounds overweight and their back hurts all the time. And there's no way they can go on that ski trip that they've dreamt of, or or on that hike across northern Spain that they've always wanted to do, or whatever it is. So I find real people who are going through these life experiences and get them to open up to me and infuse their stories with a broader sense of this being a trend that's happening to others or a common issue that a lot of people face. And then here's how these people solve their problem, and you can too. And now they're happier, right? And you can be happier too. So I don't say that. I don't think that's necessary. It should be implicit that you're reading an emotionally involving story, you relate to that person, you see yourself in that person somehow, and you're inspired perhaps. And then, or the other kind of things I write are little stories that are based on scientific studies that are legitimate, that are published in, American, Medical Association and Harvard Medical Review and things like this that are legit. Not because there's all sorts of garbage out there. You have to be somewhat have some scrutiny about it and find the real information out there and use it to enlighten people to say, hey, there's new information about our brains coming out all the time, and this is true. There's a lot of new research in the field of brain health. And we're finding that physical exercise is good for our brain health, and it can even help us fight dementia. And we didn't know that a few years ago, a generation ago. We can regenerate new nerve cells. We can create new pathways in the brain, and exercise has a big role in that. So it's a mixture of real life people doing real life things that you'll relate to, and then some more scientific things. And the way I go about it, or the way I suggest that people do when they're trying to write anything, is the first thing they have to do is ask themselves, who am I writing this for? And then the second thing is, what do I want them to come away with? What do I want them to do? And so you might think, well, I'm writing this to my employees because people keep no one's signing their timesheet right. Okay, that's one specific task. That's an audience. I'm writing this to my employees to tell them to sign their timesheets right or do whatever. But if you're writing to a bank because you want a loan, that's a different audience, and your purpose is to show them that you're a good candidate for a loan and that you want them to lend you the money. If you're writing to your community or your prospects, people who have already engaged in you and said, yes, Deb, I want to learn more about your business. I want to be on your email newsletter. I might want to be a customer someday. Then that's the audience. And your goal is to let them get to know you and like you and trust you. It's not to sell them all the time, right? Nobody likes to be sold to all the time. Sometimes you just want some nice information or some perspective or some engaging content. And so that's what I try to do, is give the gym owner, the yoga instructor, what have you, the material that lets their audience get to know them and like them and trust them. And you do that by using content that shows your values in action, and by using photographs of people who are your target audience. If you want to help 50-year-old women, then your website and your email newsletters and your social media should reflect that in images and text, not pictures of 25-year-old boys with huge biceps, right? Not that there's nothing wrong with young boys who want big muscles, but you're sending a message. You were just saying how you're a marketer, whether you like it or not. And you are, and everything you're putting forth is sending a message. So I try to help fitness professionals send the message to the community. I want to help people over 50 live their best lives. I want to help them be strong enough and have the agility and the endurance to live the lives they want to live and do the things they want to do for as long as possible. And they respond to that if you keep putting that message out there consistently.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you I know you've looked at a lot of content. My guess is you've cringed a few times, but if you said, and you're so nice, you wouldn't admit it. I know it. So I'm just going to say it for you. So if
Okay.
you had to say top 3 top 3 mistakes that, if you are reviewing content, whether it was reaching out via email or the quote unquote dreaded newsletter, which man, I hate that term. Can that just die and shrivel up and go away
Yeah.
today? But what are the mistakes that you see that are hurting the
Hmm.
relationship with people that are already on that list, and or um, not enticing anybody to want to get on it in the first place?
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I think it starts perhaps with the enticing them to get on it. So you've got to have some good lead magnets that you want to, where you're going to provide people with something useful in exchange for their contact information. And this can be something as simple as 3 healthy recipes for desserts. Doesn't have to be anything monumental, right?
But that right there is monumental. Do you know that that would be gold? No woman, maybe men too. I can't speak for you. No woman ever has too many recipes.
Yeah.
I mean, recipes are almost a given. Somebody will opt in for that.
Well, yes, that's one of the first things I learned in this was in deciding what my weekly content. I send my content to my subscribers weekly, and in deciding what kinds of content to send them, I came up with this article and this photograph and that graphic and all of that. And someone said, where's the recipe?" And I said, "Oh, recipe. I don't care about recipes." And they said, "You might not, but everyone else does, Bubba."
Yeah.
And I have learned that early and often that people love recipes. So I do give them a healthy recipe once a week because we're all looking for healthy recipes that you can actually make and that are not loaded up with a bunch of salt and fat and stuff we're not supposed to be eating, but that are still yummy and fun to make and good to feed your family. So I do focus on recipes. Yeah. So that's an idea of a lead magnet, which is something that you do. Sorry, that was my phone.
You're popular.
Um,
Mhm.
no, I just forgot to turn my phone off. Sorry about that. Um, a lead magnet is something you give away to people in exchange for their email information. And it's if again to your point, if people think it's sleazy, it's not sleazy. It's just really a basic, nice way to give some value and to show a little bit about who you are. And it's up to them to decide if they're willing to give you their email information or not. And it's up to them to unsubscribe because your email is going to say at the bottom every time, unsubscribe here if you don't want this anymore.
Mhm.
So it's all up to them. It's not cold calling. Remember when we were kids and we'd sit down to the family dinner table and the phone would ring, it would be some cold call wanting to sell your dad some, timeshare in Boca or something, right?
No, not
It's
for me. It would be Sharon Philp, and she wanted to know how soon I was going to be done so I could come outside.
Well, my point is that getting someone on your email list is not an obnoxious thing to do. It might feel uncomfortable for you. That doesn't mean it's uncomfortable for them. We all do it all the time. We see something and it says, "Hey, do you want 3 healthy recipes for good desserts? Give me your email. I'll send it right to you." And you do it. You don't make a big deal of it in your head when you do that. It's just kind of how we get to know businesses and providers these days. So, um, and you can put a lead magnet on your Facebook page and on your website, and that's a great way to do it. I've had one on mine
Mhm.
for all this time, and I still get people interacting with it.
Mhm.
And then what that does, it takes away that pressure that you were describing of feeling like you're being obnoxious by sending emails because they asked for it. They
Mhm.
asked you to send them stuff, right?
Mhm.
So that I emphasize that because this is something I always hear. People will say, "Oh, I don't want to send too many emails and make people and be a spammer and have people get annoyed with me." Well, the way you do that, two steps. One, you remind yourself that they gave you their email address, so they asked for this information from you. And second, you give them good information. You don't give them annoying junk that they're going to delete, right? You give them useful, relevant, entertaining stuff that's going to bring some value to their lives. You don't give them a hard sell. "Hey, come on down to our studio and it's 2 for 1 tomorrow, but only for the first 5 people before noon. And, you don't come on with the hard sell all the time. You come on as a trusted advisor and a friendly expert. And here's some information I thought you might enjoy. And over time, that builds up that relationship. So the mistakes that people often make, they don't make it clear who they're for, either on their websites or on their Facebook pages or on their in their email newsletters. They'll just I do audit content for gyms. It's part of my services, and it's amazing how often I'll look at someone's website or email newsletters or social media, and you can't tell what they do. And you say, well, who are you for? And they'll say, well, I teach yoga to women who have recently gone through menopause. And say, okay, that's awesome. I have no idea. I've looked at your website, your email newsletter, and your Facebook page, and nowhere does it say that. Well, but everyone knows that. No, I promise you that not everyone knows that. I promise you that very, very few people know that. And it's your job to let them know why you're in business and why they should engage with you. And that's the first thing, is to be very clear about what you are doing and who it's for. And that applies in all your communications. And in newsletters, I think the biggest problem is that reluctance to do it. People are sometimes afraid to send out newsletters because they don't want to be spammy. And what they're really saying is they don't have time to come up with good content to put in their newsletters. Because if you get good content from a vendor or a business in your town, and every time you open it, it's something good, you're going to be happy about that. You're going to get that good recipe. You're going to get that funny joke. You're going to get that interesting article about new research or whatever. So you have to make your emails good, and you have to make your content relevant and enticing, and it has to reflect who you are and who you're trying to help. And that comes through in all this content that I produce regarding people over 50, but it's just as true if your niche is teenage athletes who are trying to get college scholarships, or if it's postmenopausal women, or if it's women who've just had their first baby and want to lose weight afterward. Whatever it is, you've got to be clear about who you're writing to, and then you've got to give them good information and not sell them all the time. And then do it. Be consistent. Do it once a week. Do it twice a week. Do it every day. I don't care. But be consistent, because they'll forget about you. We're all busy. I'm not going to remember that you're the gym that wants to help old people. I'm going to forget about you because you stopped sending me emails.
Why do you think it is that, I mean, we've got all these statistics, they're at your fingertips and my fingertips, and I feel maybe that's just because my antenna's up, that we're getting this message on the regular, if not on the daily, that there are so many people over 50 in this world, in our wherever you happen to live, if you're within earshot of this podcast. Why isn't the fitness industry doing more to help people over 50? Why do you suspect that's true?
I think it's because it's a new industry. I'm 60, so I was in high school in the late 70s.
Young. Yes. Thank you.
And I graduated high school in 1981, and there wasn't a fitness industry until the late 70s, early 80s, when you might remember, Farrah Fawcett and all those kinds of stars started jogging, and there was a huge bestseller called The Big Book of Running. And it was like #1 for 5 years or something. And Jane Fonda came out with her workout tapes and a book. I think it started with a book. And, Jane Fonda was a movie star, right? She was one of the most famous women in the world, but because of being a movie star, not because of exercise. And yet out of all of this stuff, in the late 70s and early 80s came Nautilus and Curves, and every other actress came out with her tape on how to exercise, and just became part of the culture for the first time, that ordinary people started working out. So I think that's part of it, is that the industry came up to deal with 20s and 30 somethings and never really evolved past that. Um, and then, you know, I think also there's just a lot of stereotypes that are hard to kill in the broader culture, the broader society. Just the other day, I went looking for a birthday card, and there were so many cards making fun of getting older. Oh, you're 40. I guess you might as well,
Yeah.
crawl under a rock and just wait to die, or whatever. Or about how funny it is that you can't hear anything now because you're 50, or you whatever. And I get it. That's funny. I'm not being uptight about that. But there's persistent stereotypes in our culture broadly, not just in fitness, against aging. And makeup is sold to women as anti-aging.
Mm.
Well, I know a lot of women don't like that. So, I'm aging and I'm fine with
Hmm.
it. I want the
Yeah.
wrinkles I want the cream to make my skin look better. It's not anti-aging. It's whatever, something else. So it's all in how we look at things. And I think that we are still relying on old stereotypes and humor about aging that are based on the way people were, maybe not even in my parents' generations, but in my grandparents' generation. My grandfather worked for his whole life, and then he retired, and then he went to Florida, and then he died. And I think he was probably 70, and that's what people did back then. You worked for some company forever, or you were, a salesman, or you were in the service, or you did your career, and then you stopped working at 65, and then you died around 70. That's no longer relevant. We have better medicine, we have better nutrition, we have better health care, and we're all living longer. And those of us who are baby boomers are used to being, having the world revolve around us. And we're going to continue to do that as we age. We're going to change everything about aging. But those stereotypes persist, that you're old and
Hmm.
frail and you can't hear and,
Hmm.
incontinent and all of these things. I don't know that they were ever true, but they're certainly not true anymore. They're not relevant right now. And I think the industry is just missing such a huge opportunity. Not everybody. There's a lot of good gyms and studios out there who are doing excellent work helping older people. And by older, I'm just talking 50, 60, 70. I'm not talking,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So,
No, I think, and you bring up such a great point, kind of underlying your point, and that is that there is a certain demographic who would respond really well to anti aging and that message.
mhm.
And that may or may not be who you want to go after. But I think there is an equal opposite big audience who would respond really well to pro aging. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm aging. I'm not in denial of that. Yes, I still want to look attractive or my best at this age. I'm not trying to, be 30 at 65.
right.
I'm cool with this. And it's actually, there's a lot of freedom that comes with this, but
Yes,
I, I think you've got to pick your lane and know, who am I going after, and not try necessarily to play all the field, and have like be for everybody. Like, who do you serve? When you went there with that question and you said, maybe it was a yoga instructor who helped women over 50, my fear was that she was going to answer you, quote unquote, saying, well, I can help anybody with yoga, because that would be a
yes,
really bad answer.
yes,
Even if it's true, you should be targeting with your message an individual who's going to be receiving it, reading it, hearing it, however you're delivering it, who can say, she's talking to me. Because if you're
yes.
just saying it's for everybody, nobody wants a
Mm-mm.
generalist, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the gyms that are for everybody, if you say I'm for everybody, the cliche is then you're for nobody.
Yeah.
You're not really trying to help anyone.
Yeah.
And if you think about it just from a slightly different angle, think about your listeners have fitness businesses. Think about when they say I'm for everybody. Think about that. What does that mean? Children? Are you for children? Are you
Mm,
for people with severe physical handicaps?
mm,
Are you for elite athletes? Do you have that kind of service and equipment and technicians and expertise that can help elite athletes get just that 0.1% better to do that? Are you for, men who've had hip replacement? Are you for women who want to remain a size 2 throughout their whole lives? I mean, there's no everybody. There's no gym that's going to be effective in helping everybody. So you have to think about it a little bit differently. Think, when you say I'm for everybody, stop and say no, you're not, and then come up with a parameter. And that parameter can be as broad as you want it to be, but it will help you narrow your focus and be more effective on your marketing and your communications, but also in the service you're providing. Like when I say my content is for gyms who help people over 50, that's a really broad category.
Mm.
And I have subcategories of my gym and studios who I work with. Some work with people who are already quite comfortable at a gym. Some work with elite athletes. Most of them work with the broad swath of Americans who have not exercised and who are deconditioned and who are wanting to enjoy this next phase of life, to play with their grandchildren and travel and keep golfing or gardening or doing the things that they want to do, without getting overweight or without being too reliant on medications. Really common, basic stuff.
Hmm.
That's the majority, but that's not everybody. And some of the gyms and studios I work with niche down even farther. Over 50 is not a niche. It's just
Hmm.
there's too much variation there. Um, a 50-year-old elite female athlete is not
Yeah.
the same as an 80-year-old man who hasn't done anything since college.
Hmm.
So you do have that freedom in your business to decide who you're for and who you want to help. And I think you've got to make some choices. You just absolutely do.
Yeah, I so love that. And let's just kind of go down. I think sometimes copywriting in general is it, like, where do I write copy? And I have copy, but literally it's everything. That's your website, that's your emails, that's your anytime you open your mouth to go live, you
Mm-hmm.
somehow want a bit of a script. Like, how am I going to use which words, and what do I open with? What do I use as my main content? How am I closing that? It's all copy. I'm going to ask you a tough question. And
Mm-hmm.
this is because of the moment we're in, as we're asking this in 2024, it's going to be relevant from here forward. But AI, is out there as a tool, and I'm seeing people use it. And I know exactly when they've used it. I think we can all tell if it says embark, embrace in your journey and your
Mm-hmm.
transformation, it's AI. So,
Sure.
how can trainers, studios, gyms positively use AI, and how are we abusing it so that it actually may be hurting us? Because I think when we first started talking about it, we all, I don't know, I got nervous. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible and potentially abused by the wrong people. But my
Yeah.
bigger fear for anybody who might be listening is, if you're using AI to create content, if there's anything quoted scientifically, you certainly better be doing your homework, because the
Mm-hmm.
AI makes things up. In case you didn't know, it could
Right.
look like it's a scientific journal and not be in existence. But
Yep.
talk about the problems, and maybe the opportunities too with AI.
It's a great topic. I'm glad you brought it up. Um, I was nervous, not nervous. I was not terribly interested when it came up, and I think when it first came around, I think it was because I was afraid it was going to take what was take my job. It was like I lost
Right.
newspaper industry to one form of technology, and now this
Uh,
new thing's going to come along and take my new career. So I just won't. I just won't bother with that. I'm just going to ignore that. That didn't last very long because that's not a realistic approach, and AI is probably going to be revolutionary for a lot of the way that we live and a lot of the ways we do business and medicine and finance and all sorts of things that I don't know anything about, but that are more substantial than copywriting, right? So we can't pretend it's not there. We can't wish it didn't exist. Instead, I think we need to have a basic understanding of what it kind of is and play with it a little bit so that you overcome the fear of it and have a sense of what its limitations are yourself. And it's going to be evolving so quickly that in a year, whatever you and I say today, who knows? Who knows what they'll come up with next? I don't know. So, but speaking for what it does, what it can do now, you use the word tool, and that's all it is. And that's a good thing. If you use it as a tool, it can be helpful. These are things that were suggested to me when I decided to stop putting my head in the sand and learn about it a little bit. I didn't come up with this. This is stuff that other smarter people have come up with. I work alone most of the time in my apartment. And when I worked in newsrooms or in corporate jobs, I was surrounded by smart, intelligent people and activity and stuff and sources of information coming at me all the time. And I had colleagues next to me, and I could turn and say, "Dave, would you read this for me? Is this boring? Am I trying too hard? Or did I bury the most important information? What do you think?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anyone here for that. Now, so I sometimes have used AI as sort of an idea generator. Like you can ask it, "Hey, give me 10, I want to write a new article about, I don't know, pick a topic that I've written about 10 times already. Give me 10 ideas." And it gives you 10 ideas, and you think, give me 10 more. And out of that, you might get something that gets your brain going a little bit. That's something that's useful to me. It can write in different voices, different tones. So you can say, "Write this as if you're with the New Yorker magazine," and it's going to be very sophisticated and, posh. Or you can say, "Write this like it's for Highlights magazine for children," or what have you. You can say, "My audience for this is smart teenage girls, and I'm an old man. So rewrite this thing that I wrote, rewrite it in the tone of a smart 16-year-old girl." And maybe it'll do it a little bit. And you say, "Do it more. Give me more of that." And it'll go, and you can keep pushing it until to the point that it's ridiculous, that you say, "No 16-year-old girl ever said any of that," because it's like on steroids. It's the cliched teenage girl voice amplified so much that you would never use it. The point is that it gets you thinking, and you might pull a phrase out, you might pull an idea out. I would never publish anything directly off AI.
Mm-hmm.
Partly for the reason that you said, you can spot it a mile away. It's boring. It's written by a computer, and it reads like it was written by a computer. And because that's not the value to me. To me, the value is helping me get unstuck. It's helping me come up with an expression that I might be lacking, or I've written something that I want to be conversational, and I feel like when I read it, it's written by a professor. So I might say, "Give me some ways to make this more conversational." I think those are legitimate ways to use it for me as a professional writer. I think for a gym owner or a fitness professional to do that, I would be very careful, because you can't assume that anything that comes out of there is accurate. So, like you said, you have to double check every fact, quote unquote fact, that comes out of it. It's also based, I think, on there's a lag time. It can't research everything up to right now, and I'm talking about just the Chat GPT that is so popular. There's other services that probably can do all kinds of things, but with Chat GPT, there's a lag, so it's only going to go up until there's between its database and where we are today. So the numbers might not be the most current. And I just would caution anyone about that. It's going to sound like it's going to sound like it was written by a computer. So if you're doing your newsletter and you say, I want to give my readers 5 tips to help them have a safe and healthy Memorial Day weekend, or to not eat too much over Memorial Day weekend or something, ask AI. It'll give you some ideas. There'll be 1 or 2 that maybe you hadn't thought of. Maybe you think, oh, that's a good idea.
Love that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of just thinking it's going to let you off the hook, that it's going to do my newsletter for me. It will not. No. For it to do it for you, you would have to spend so much time becoming an AI expert and asking it the right questions and asking it the right follow-up questions and asking it to do it again and again and over and honing it. You'd spend more time getting it to do exactly what you want than you would spend just doing it yourself, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, the message I keep hearing, and I am doing several trainings, but it's, the answer you get is only as good as the questions, the prompts that you give it. However, still, even today, I very recently asked for, and sometimes I'm just doing this to test it, just full disclosure, but, to give me resources. And it gave me like 18 resources. And looking them up, I mean, it's a legitimate journal. It's a title that could be a legitimate title. It's listing authors even of it.
Really?
But nothing, it's not in existence. So I would be hesitant for some of you who might be passing this off, like you're delegating. And bottom line is, if it's you, it's your store, it's your reputation, don't just get that back and check the box. Like, this is done now, because somebody who just wants to get it done may not be checking all those resources, but that's your reputation. And
that's right.
We got to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. If I were, I guess if you were in a big hurry and you had to get something out for your newsletter or whatever, and you wanted to say, give me, 5 ideas to start exercising tomorrow. Well, it would probably write something that you could use and not get in too much trouble, but I wouldn't use that. You know that already. You know that information in your head already. And it's going to read so boring that you'd have to rewrite it in your own voice. I know, it's a tool. That's all it is. Don't rely on it.
So good. Jay, all right. Tell everybody where they can learn more about you and what you do. And we know you have a freebie somewhere because you talked about it, but where
yes,
also
I do.
Are you on social that they can follow or stalk you if they should want to?
Yes. So my business is called Prime Fit Content, and you can find me at primefitcontent.com. And there you'll see my free giveaway is the 7 secrets to selling fitness over 50. And that's the 7 topics that people in this demographic are most concerned with, the biggest motivators they have for getting fit. So that's my giveaway. You give me your email address and you'll get this, and it's really good. There's a lot of good information, and I think you'll enjoy it. And then if you want to unsubscribe from me, that's fine too. It happens all the time. So that's the website is primefitcontent.com. I have a podcast called Optimal Aging, and I'm on Facebook, J Croft with a C, and I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Yeah, that's it. Oh, and you can send me an email directly if you like at jay@primefitcontent.com.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a great discussion. I appreciate you. Copywriting is not going away. So if you were in business,
no, it's not. Thank God.
Fitness business, copywriting will be there forever. And the better you do it, it's becoming a better communicator. I mean, and that is the core of every relationship, including the one with your next client.
Yes, it is. Well put. Thanks so much for having me, Deborah. It's been a pleasure.
You are welcome. And for show notes, everybody, to connect with Jay and get more tips, on how to improve your own copywriting or get some support from him directly, you can go
Absolutely.
to fitnessmarketingmastery.com/content to reach over 50 clients. And what are you waiting for? The world needs you now more than ever.